Pavel Durov lives by extreme discipline, total abstinence, intense daily rituals. As Telegram's founder, he fights for one thing: your freedom and privacy. Governments pressure him, France even arrested him, but he won't break. Telegram runs on a tiny team of elite engineers, automated, encrypted, relentless. While others compromise, Durov stands firm: privacy isn't negotiable, freedom isn't for sale.
Okay, let's get into this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to really analyze a truly singular figure in global tech, Pavel Durov.
He's definitely unique.
Founder and CEO of Telegram, a platform that, what is it, over 1 billion people now?
Over 1 billion, yeah. And yet, it's run in a way that just completely breaks the mold of, your typical Silicon Valley company.
It really does. We've gone through a stack of sources for this: interviews, technical analyses, his own writings. And the picture they paint is, well, it's less of a CEO and more of a philosopher king engineered for the digital age.
Right. The descriptions you keep seeing are principled and fearless. Someone living this intensely disciplined, almost ascetic life.
I mean, we're talking about long periods of no phone use, a really strict diet, and a daily fitness routine that honestly sounds extreme.
It's intense, and that's really the big question for this dive, isn't it? How does this very personal philosophy of constraint, of deliberate scarcity...
How does that scale up? How does that translate into running a massive global platform?
Exactly. How do you run a tech giant with this famously tiny team? I think it's around 40 core engineers.
Only 40. While constantly fighting some of the most powerful governments on the planet. And yet somehow you manage to out-innovate all of its competitors. The features, the speed, it's all there.
That's the path we want to trace. We're going to unpack his core values, explore the just staggering technical efficiency of Telegram.
But we also have to look at the other side of that coin. The immense personal cost. The geopolitical cost that comes with this absolute non-negotiable commitment he has to freedom of speech and privacy.
And that duality you just mentioned, that's where the real insight is for you, the listener. The sources we have are, on one hand, deeply philosophical. They're about freedom, fear, mortality.
Big human nature stuff.
Exactly. And on the other hand, they're super technical. We're talking lean engineering, proprietary encryption, the speed of feature releases on Telegram.
So our goal here is to connect those two worlds.
Precisely. To synthesize them. We want to show you the direct line, the causal link between Durov's self-imposed discipline, that scarcity in his personal life, and the incredible success of his platform, which gives users this abundance of speed, security, and features.
That's like a masterclass in building psychological armor.
It is. And then using that armor to build operational efficiency. It's about building a digital fortress, really, but starting with the fortress of the self.
Okay, so let's start right at the bedrock. The foundation of this entire philosophy, everything he builds, going all the way back to VK, the Russian social network.
Right, his first big project.
It's all based on one core principle. He says it in Russian. Svoboda важнее,
which means?
Freedom matters more than money. And this isn't some, slick corporate slogan he put on a poster. He traces it all the way back to his childhood.
The move from the Soviet Union.
Exactly, moving from the Soviet Union to northern Italy when he was just 4 years old. And he said even as a little kid, he immediately felt this stark contrast between a totalitarian state and a free society.
He saw an abundance, right? That's the word he used.
An abundance of opinions, ideas, goods, and services. He talks about how in the Soviet Union, you might have one type of toy, maybe one flavor of ice cream. That in the West, it was just this surplus of choice.
So that connection was made really early on in his mind.
Yes. That personal freedom is the prerequisite for creation, for innovation, and ultimately for true abundance. You can't even contribute to it if you're not free.
Okay, so if freedom is the ultimate goal, the next logical step is to identify what threatens it.
And in his mind, it boils down to two primary enemies: fear and greed. And he tackles fear, especially the fear of death, with this intense, relentless rationality. He forces himself to think about mortality. Constant.
This is a very stoic approach, almost like a modern memento mori, but for, business and innovation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, his logic is just cold and practical. If you can imagine the worst thing that could happen, dying, and you can make peace with that outcome on a logical level,
then what leverage does anyone have over you?
None. The emotional leverage is gone. He has this famous quote where he says something like, "There is no such thing as your death in your life. You stop experiencing life once you die." So feeling that non-experience is just irrational.
So the takeaway is to live by your principles, because the alternative.
The alternative, a life full of fear and compromise, is what he calls slavery. And that's worse to him than a shorter life lived freely. He says reminding himself he could die any day makes every single moment count. It pushes him toward radical, principled action instead of, just hesitating.
And to have that kind of philosophical strength, you need a stable foundation. Which brings us right to his disciplined aesthetic life. The sources are clear. Complete abstinence for over 2 decades.
No alcohol, no tobacco, no coffee, no pills, no illegal drugs.
Nothing.
And again, the reason is just pure rationalized performance optimization. It's not about morality. It started when he was 11 years old.
His biochemistry teacher gave him a book.
Right, The Illusion of Paradise. And it just laid out this harsh chemical view of addictive substances. With alcohol, the part that really stuck with him was the process of brain cell damage.
The cells get paralyzed, some become zombies, and the next day, many just die off. They never come back.
So for a guy whose entire life and business depend on the absolute peak performance of his mind, the calculation is simple. Why would you consciously destroy your most valuable asset?
For a fleeting pleasure, it's self-sabotage.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the biology. He sees alcohol as a spiritual painkiller.
A way to mask deeper issues.
Deeper fears, anxieties, feeling inadequate, usually in social situations. Alcohol's the quick fix, but the real solution is to confront yourself.
So his advice is to just bypass a chemical crutch.
And fix the underlying problem, which is usually at the very bottom, is always going to be fear. Fear of rejection, fear of public speaking, whatever it is. You face it sober instead of borrowing confidence from a bottle and paying for it later with, diminished brain power.
That fear of rejection you mentioned.
Yeah.
That links directly to his very strong views on conformity.
Oh, yeah. He thinks humans are basically hard-coded to be agreeable.
It's an evolutionary thing.
Yeah.
20,000 years ago, if you got kicked out of the tribe, you were dead.
But he says today that fear makes 0 sense. If you just follow what everyone else is doing, you're just stuck in a rat race with millions of other people.
So to be successful, you have to be contrarian.
You have to consciously fight that urge to be accepted. You have to find a niche nobody else is exploring and master it. It's strategic. If you're charting your own course, there are no competitors, just opportunities.
So he sees conformity as, what, a business inhibitor? Not just a social weakness.
A huge one. To make decisions that go against the market, like refusing targeted ads or running a global service with just 40 people, you literally cannot afford to care what the tribe thinks about you.
Whether that tribe is investors, the media, or governments.
Right. And that self-control, that independence, he cultivates it physically. Which brings us to his fitness routine.
Okay, the numbers are just insane. 300 push-ups and 300 squats. Every single morning.
And that's before his normal gym sessions.
Which are 5 or 6 times a week for an hour or 2 each.
And those 300 squats, he's admitted they're particularly boring.
That's the whole point, isn't it? He says the primary goal isn't just fitness, it's practicing the muscle of self-discipline.
Exactly. By forcing yourself to do something tedious and difficult every morning, it makes it so much easier to tackle the big, scary challenges of running a company like Telegram. He says once you train that muscle, everything else just comes by itself.
And he draws this very direct, almost physiological line to mental performance.
The brain is a machine. It runs on oxygen and sugar. Physical activity increases the flow of both.
So your thinking gets clearer, faster, more efficient.
He was actually surprised years ago that more CEOs weren't into intense sports, just for the productivity benefits alone, not to mention the resilience it builds against stress.
And that resilience, it extends to his recovery methods too. He talks a lot about the bamya.
Right, the Eastern European sauna, which is not a gentle, relaxing spa day. It's extreme.
It's about maximizing intense heat and then immediate shocking cold plunge.
It's voluntary suffering. That's how he sees it. You endure discomfort in the short term for long-term health and mental benefits. He calls it alcohol in reverse.
Fleeing pleasure now for a cost later versus short-term pain for long-term gain.
It's an investment in resilience. And his endurance swims, the stories are almost mythological.
The 5.5-hour swim in the cold waters of Finland.
Where he actually got lost for hours. Enduring that kind of grind, that physical and mental challenge, is what he believes builds the persistence you need to do anything significant. You learn that discomfort is temporary, but the reward for pushing through is immense. And you can see that self-discipline reflected immediately in how he works, starting with his information diet. It's incredibly rigorous.
He builds an information firewall.
A fierce one. He barely uses his phone except maybe to test new Telegram features. And crucially, he avoids all digital devices for as many hours as possible in the morning.
So he's actively protecting his own mind space. Why is the phone such a threat in his view?
Because it defines your agenda. If the first thing you do is pick up your phone, check email, social media, news, you instantly become, and this is his phrase, a creature that is told what to think about for the rest of the day.
You become reactive instead of proactive.
You completely lose control. His alternative is to just allocate time, sometimes up to 11 or 12 hours, not all for sleep, but for quiet thinking.
Just lying in bed or in the shower.
Yes. Generating ideas and setting his own agenda, totally free from external noise. He sees that quiet time as the source of the brilliant ideas that keep Telegram ahead. He's not wasting mental energy on, the petty online squabbles of the world's richest people.
That's such a fascinating contrast, isn't it? The guy running one of the world's biggest communication platforms is hostile to external communication, dictating his own thoughts.
And that clarity seems to fuel his whole approach to overcoming negativity or despair. He doesn't wait around to feel motivated.
Right. His philosophy is that energy comes from doing.
Correct. If you're stuck worrying, you're passive. Nothing changes. You have to identify the problem, figure out a solution, and then immediately start executing.
Which is why the gym routine is non-negotiable, even on days he doesn't feel like it.
Because overcoming that initial resistance, that inertia, is what creates the energy for everything else. It's a loop.
Yeah.
Discipline leads to action. Action generates energy. Energy fuels efficiency. It's always do first, feel motivated later.
Okay, and this is where that monastic focus slams into technology and creates something just truly unique. The lean operation of Telegram.
It's almost unbelievable.
A global platform, always on, over 1 billion users. And it runs with a core engineering team of only about 40 people.
40. That includes back-end, front-end, designers, sysadmins, everyone.
For context, a successful startup with maybe 1 million users might have a team that big.
It is staggering, and it's entirely by design. It's philosophical for him. He believes quantity is the enemy of quality.
Too many people creates friction.
Massive friction. He estimates that in big companies, people spend 90% of their time just coordinating with other people. And worse, he thinks unnecessary employees actually become demotivating.
How so?
If people don't have enough real work, they start disrupting the team. They find problems that don't exist or invent pointless projects just to look busy. And that inefficiency is just a silent killer of speed and innovation.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. With a system this massive, constantly fighting off attacks and censorship, isn't a team of only 40 incredibly fragile?
You mean like a single point of failure risk?
Exactly. What if 1 or 2 of those key engineers with all this specialized knowledge decide to leave? Does the whole thing just collapse?
That's a great question. And the answer is that the small team is an intentional constraint. It forces them to build incredibly robust automation.
They can't manage it manually.
They couldn't possibly. They have almost 100,000 servers distributed around the world. To manage that by hand, you'd need thousands of people.
So by limiting hiring,
they are forced to automate everything. Algorithms manage the server system. They handle load balancing, maintenance, everything. And that makes the system inherently more scalable and more resilient because you're minimizing the human element.
He's blunt about that, isn't he? He calls humans attack vectors.
Because they make mistakes, they introduce vulnerabilities, they leave knowledge gaps when they quit. A well-written automated system is just superior to a big, complex, human-run one. The system itself becomes the ultimate engineer.
And this whole philosophy of using scarcity to achieve mastery, it goes all the way back to how he started programming at age 10.
It does. It was because of a scarcity of video games. If you don't have entertainment, you have to create it. Build your own fun.
And that story about the infinite tic-tac-toe game.
It's so instructive. He coded a computer opponent, but to make sure he could win, he had to make the AI opponent stronger and stronger. The path to victory wasn't to make the challenge easier, it was to achieve total mastery yourself. He saw difficulty as the engine of learning.
And that carried through to VK. He programmed the first version himself in just a few weeks.
Single-handedly. PHP and MySQL. And for the first year, he was the only employee. Back-end, front-end, design, customer support, marketing. He did it all.
Which gave him this incredibly deep, intimate knowledge of every single part of a social platform.
An invaluable foundation. And when VK did scale, the obsession was always speed. In 2009, VK loaded faster than Facebook, even for people in Silicon Valley.
How did they manage that back then?
Pure obsessive optimization. His brother, Nikolai, is a mathematical genius. So while everyone else was using standard off-the-shelf stuff, they customized everything. Eventually, Nikolai just rewrote huge chunks of the core data engines in C and C++.
Lower level, faster languages.
Way faster. You get performance gains that a scripting language like PHP just can't touch. That mathematical rigor created a speed advantage that users could literally feel.
And that speed, that hyper-efficiency, is still the core idea behind Telegram today. He believes people notice the difference, even if it's just 50 milliseconds.
It might be subconscious, but it adds up. It creates that feeling of quality. And that extends to these little UI and UX details that are a mix of art and engineering.
Let's talk about the chat background. It's not just a color. It's a shifting four-color background gradient that subtly moves as you scroll.
That's such a perfect example. Why 4 colors? Because it creates a depth of visual pleasure that a simple 2-color fade can't. You might not notice it consciously, but you feel that it's just better.
And the engineering to get that right must be a nightmare.
Immense. To render that complex gradient perfectly, with no lag, on the oldest, weakest smartphones in the world, that takes serious proprietary optimization.
And then you have the Thanos snap effect, the animation when you delete a message and it just evaporates into particles.
It's pure visual delight, but it's technically excruciating to build.
Because you have to render that complex animation while seamlessly moving all the other messages up to fill the gap.
And if it's not perfectly smooth, you get this ugly, distracting flicker. So to pull off an artistic effect like that while maintaining that 50-millisecond responsiveness on every single platform,
it shows that the creators care.
It shows they put love into the details. And he believes that if they can bring even 0.001% more joy into people's lives with these little touches, then they have to do it. So all of this technical mastery we've been talking about, the small team, the custom engineering, the obsession with speed, it all serves this one single purpose.
To create an impenetrable security architecture, to back up that promise of privacy and freedom.
Exactly. It's not just marketing. It's baked into the system's DNA. Telegram's data infrastructure is deliberately spread across multiple legal jurisdictions around the globe, and the decryption keys, they're split up.
What does that mean exactly? They're split.
It means the keys needed to read user data are broken into pieces, and those pieces are physically stored in different data centers in different countries under different legal entities.
But no single government can get access.
No single government, no intelligence agency, no court order can force them to hand over the data. They'd have to successfully compromise multiple different legal systems in multiple countries simultaneously. It's practically impossible.
Which is how he can maintain that absolute stance. Telegram has never shared a single private message with anyone.
Not once since 2013. He's on record saying they would rather shut Telegram down in a certain country than do that. For him, privacy is the foundation of freedom. You can't speak your mind if you don't feel safe.
And this gets to a really important technical point about trust that I think most people miss. Reproducible builds.
Oh, this is so crucial. Telegram is the only major messaging app with open source reproducible builds for both Android and iOS.
Okay, so break that down. Why does that matter to an everyday user?
Okay, imagine a company says their safe is uncrackable and they show you the blueprints, that's open source code, but then they just give you the finished safe, the app you download. You have no way of knowing if they secretly built a hidden backdoor into it that wasn't in the blueprints.
Right, you just have to trust them.
With reproducible builds, you don't have to trust. An external researcher can take the public code from GitHub, compile it themselves, and then check if the app they built is byte for byte identical to the one in the App Store.
And if it is, you know there are no hidden backdoors, no secret surveillance code.
Exactly. It's the ultimate proof of transparency. And it's a standard that competitors like WhatsApp and Signal still haven't managed to meet across both major platforms.
But this technical fortress hasn't made him immune to conflict. Not by a long shot. The most dramatic recent example is what you call the Kafkaesque crisis in France.
August of last year. He flies into France for a quick trip, lands, and is immediately met by a dozen armed police officers. He was arrested and held for almost 4 days.
And the charges?
That's where it gets absurd. He was accused of about 15 serious crimes, all of which were allegedly committed by anonymous Telegram users, not by him. He was held in this tiny cell with a concrete bed and no windows.
That sounds like something out of a novel.
It's pure Franz Kafka's The Trial. The system is confusing, the accusations are vague, and the process itself is the punishment. He said the most absurd part was the total lack of technical understanding from the judges and police.
They didn't even understand how the platform worked.
They were asking basic questions about encryption, about social media operations. Questions you'd think they'd have answered before making such a high-profile arrest. He calls the whole thing an absurd and harmful way to try and regulate tech.
Okay, but let's address the obvious counter-argument here. Telegram is used by organized crime, by drug dealers, by terrorist groups. Isn't there an ethical duty for a platform this big to help law enforcement prevent serious crimes? Even if it means bending that privacy rule just a little.
And that is the absolute core of the debate. It's the line he will not cross. His position is that they have strong moderation policies against public calls for violence and terrorism, and they shut down public channels that violate those rules.
But not private chats.
Never. The moment you compromise end-to-end encryption for private chats, the entire security model collapses. You create a single point of failure that governments can and will exploit. And there's no technical way to guarantee that backdoor is only used for good reasons. For him, the risk of an authoritarian regime getting that key far outweighs the benefit of helping local police.
And the situation in France went from being just legally absurd to actively political.
Very quickly. While he was stuck in France, unable to leave, French intelligence services approached him directly.
And what did they want?
They asked him to politically censor channels that were supporting the conservative candidate in the Romanian elections.
Wow. So it wasn't about terrorism or crime. It was straight up political interference.
Blatant. He refused, of course. He said he would not engage in political censorship in Europe and that he would rather lose everything than give in to that kind of pressure. And this wasn't the first time.
The Moldova case.
Right. Before that, French intelligence had asked him to take down political channels in Moldova. Telegram did comply with a few minor violations of their terms of service, but what's so damning is that French intelligence then used that minor compliance to go and speak good things about him to his investigative judge in the French case.
Connecting the two, proving the motive was political leverage, not justice.
Exactly, and that defiance we see today. It was forged back in 2011 with VK in Russia.
The armed police at his door.
That was the moment. The Russian government demanded he take down opposition groups led by Alexei Navalny. He refused, and they sent armed police. He said that was the defining incident where he thought, if I survive this, I am definitely launching a secure messaging app.
Which led to the all-out digital war in 2018. Russia and Iran tried to ban Telegram completely after he refused to hand over encryption keys. How do you even fight that?
You create chaos and you leverage the market. In Russia, they used incredibly sophisticated IP rotation. Telegram services were constantly jumping between millions of disposable IP addresses.
So the Russian censor couldn't keep up.
They tried. Roskomnadzor started blocking huge ranges of IP addresses, but that created massive collateral damage. It started blocking completely unrelated services banks, grocery store payments, even other Russian social networks. It was crippling their own digital economy.
But the biggest threat wasn't from Russia, it was from Apple.
Unexpected, right. Apple sided with the Russian censor and refused to approve Telegram updates for 4 weeks. This was huge because without updates, the app starts to degrade for everyone globally.
What did he do?
He was ready to pull out of Russia completely, but first he made a public statement calling out Apple for actively helping a censorship regime. The story got picked up by the New York Times, the public pressure mounted.
And Apple caved.
Within 15 minutes of his public deadline, the update was approved worldwide. It was a masterclass in using public opinion as a weapon.
But the strategy in Iran sounds even more brilliant.
It was pure decentralized economics. Instead of fighting the ban themselves, they created an economic incentive for Iranians to do it for them. They created a system where local Iranian engineers could run proxy servers to bypass the ban and then monetize those proxies with non-targeted ads. Suddenly, running a proxy was a profitable small business.
So Iranian users were paying local engineers to keep the platform online.
It created this decentralized, self-sustained ecosystem of resistance that the government couldn't shut down without crushing its own tech-savvy entrepreneurial class. And the result: around 50 million active users in a country where the app is still officially banned.
This level of constant conflict must take a massive personal toll. We have to talk about the 2018 assassination attempt.
Which he only recently disclosed. And this wasn't just a threat. He genuinely believed he was dying.
What happened?
It was while he was fundraising for TON. He came back to his residence, found something left by a strange neighbor, and within an hour, the pain started. Acute pain. He said his eyesight and hearing were shutting down. He couldn't breathe. He collapsed on the floor, absolutely certain this was the end.
He was poisoned.
Clearly a targeted poisoning. He woke up the next day, covered head to toe in broken blood vessels. Couldn't walk for 2 weeks.
And his reaction to this is just not what you'd expect. He said it made him feel more free. How does that even work psychologically?
It goes right back to that Stoic philosophy we talked about in part 1. He had already rationally prepared himself for the worst possible outcome. Death.
He'd done the thought experiment.
And then it actually happened, or almost happened, and he survived. So the rational framework just kicked in. He had faced the ultimate threat, the thing everyone fears, and he came out the other side.
So he felt like he had nothing left to lose.
Exactly. He called it living on bonus time. It just reinforced his belief that there was now absolutely no reason to ever compromise his principles. The near-death experience became a form of psychological armor, not a source of trauma. It cemented his resolve completely.
Let's shift gears now from existential threats to economics. Because after all those years of fighting and building, Telegram finally hit profitability in 2024.
And how they did it is a massive victory for their entire philosophy.
They did it without using targeted ads, without exploiting user data.
Which basically contradicts the entire economic model of big tech. Durov said they consciously left about 80% of potential ad revenue on the table to protect their users' privacy.
80%, that is a staggering number. Can you break that down for the listener? Why are targeted ads so much more valuable?
It's all about CPM, the cost per thousand views. Targeted advertising, the kind Meta and Google do, is incredibly valuable because advertisers can hit a very specific high-value consumer. Say, someone in the market for a new luxury car who lives in a certain zip code.
That precision is worth a lot of money.
Exponentially more. Telegram refuses to collect that kind of personal data, so they can't offer that precision. So instead, they built their business on 3 different streams.
For first, premium subscriptions.
Right, launched in 2022. This gives power users advanced features, faster downloads, bigger file uploads, more tools, while the core messaging app stays completely free for everyone.
And that's working.
It's a huge success. Over 15 million paid subscribers already, and it's on track to generate over $500 million a year. It proves that people are willing to pay for a better product, not just be the product themselves.
Okay, second stream. Context-based ads.
Yes, and these are non-targeted. The ad is based only on the topic of the public channel it appears in. So an ad for a new video game might show up in a channel about gaming.
But it's not based on me, the individual user.
Correct. The system doesn't track you at all. Your privacy is totally intact. And the third stream is the mini app commission.
Which is a whole ecosystem they're building inside the app.
A thriving one. These are basically web apps that run seamlessly inside Telegram, and they only take a tiny 5% commission on payments made through these apps.
That low commission must be driving a ton of development.
Explosive growth. They have developers who are earning millions single-handedly. It creates the sustainable, value-driven cycle. Developers build useful tools, which makes the platform more engaging for users.
And a lot of this is built on top of the blockchain system his brother designed, right? We need to talk about TON, the open network.
TON is absolutely crucial to this decentralized vision. It's a layer 1 blockchain, which means it's the fundamental infrastructure, and it was designed from day one for massive scale.
What does that mean for massive scale? If Bitcoin is like a single-lane road,
then TON is like a superhighway with hundreds of parallel lanes. It uses something called shard chains, which lets it process a huge volume of transactions almost instantly and very, very cheaply.
And Telegram had to distance itself from it for a while.
Because of a big legal fight with the SEC, yes. But the code was open source, so the community took over, and now it's thriving on its own, but with deep integrations into Telegram.
And it's the backbone for all these new tokenized assets.
Usernames, premium accounts, and their new breakout hit, Telegram Gems or GIFs. They're basically reinvented NFTs, digital collectibles that are transferable and integrated right into the user experience.
And they're actually selling.
On a massive scale. The sources mentioned one sale where $12 million worth of Snoop Dogg-themed GIFs sold out in 30 minutes. TON is now one of the biggest drivers of daily NFT trading volume in the world. It's creating this whole new digital economy.
Okay, let's pull back to philosophy for a second. His whole life is about creating and overcoming resistance. And this seems to tie into his broader ideas about competition and the danger of too much comfort.
Oh, absolutely. He thinks competition is essential in school and in life. He argues that when you try to eliminate it, you eliminate winners, and you end up creating people who are completely unprepared for the brutal reality of competition in the real world.
He links those kinds of overprotective systems to some pretty bad outcomes.
High suicide rates, high unemployment. He believes that by sheltering people from difficulty, you're actually robbing them of the tools they need to deal with reality. And this leads right to the lesson of the Universe 25 experiment.
The mouse paradise.
The mouse paradise paradox. A famous and pretty disturbing experiment where they gave a colony of mice everything they could ever want. Unlimited food, water, safety, no predators. A perfect utopia.
And the result wasn't a utopia at all. It was a total societal collapse.
Complete collapse. The population boomed at first, but then with no challenges, no necessity, no struggle, everything fell apart. The males lost interest in mating, mothers abandoned their young, there was rampant violence.
And the beautiful ones?
A group of mice that just completely withdrew. They wouldn't interact, wouldn't breed, wouldn't do anything but groom themselves. They were paralyzed by comfort. And eventually, the whole colony went extinct, surrounded by untouched, unlimited abundance.
That is a chilling parable for the human condition. What's the application for us today?
That we evolved to overcome scarcity. Our entire biological and psychological reward system is built around solving problems. When you have too much abundance, it paralyzes motivation and destroys purpose.
So his conclusion is that we need to create our own scarcity.
Self-restriction becomes necessary to create meaning. That's why he takes the banya, does the boring squats, avoids the phone. He's engineering the resistance back into his own life to keep himself sharp. It's also why he says he'll limit his kids' inheritance until they're adults. He doesn't want abundance to kill their ambition.
It's interesting to compare his stoic approach with other big tech leaders, like Elon Musk. He talks about him.
He does. He acknowledges Musk's incredible ability to run multiple complex companies at once. But he also notes Musk's emotionality, which is often criticized.
But Durov sees it as a strength.
He argues it's the source of his strength. That emotion is what fuels him to care so deeply, to fight the wars he needs to fight, and to keep innovating. It's a different kind of engine, but it drives the same kind of radical creation.
But for his own leadership style, he says you have to be willing to be unpleasant.
Yes. You have to have the guts to fire or harshly criticize B players, because if you don't, they demoralize your A players, and their sloppy work creates huge technical and financial debt down the line. It's uncomfortable, but necessary to protect the mission.
And finally, his views on manifestation, the power of thought. It's not mystical, is it?
No, it's very practical. He believes optimism and faith are crucial, but only when you couple them with prolonged logical action. He has this image of the focused mind navigating a landscape of probabilities.
So you're not just wishing for an outcome.
You're actively shaping the odds. By concentrating your effort, your logic, your self-discipline, day after day, you're making your desired outcome exponentially more probable. It's about systematically turning a possibility into a reality through sheer force of will and consistent effort. #outro.
So after all of this, what's the core takeaway for you as a learner from this deep dive?
For me, Durov's entire journey is this powerful case study. It shows how that rigid self-discipline, the diet, the 300 squats, the information firewall, it's not just a lifestyle choice.
It's a prerequisite. It's the prerequisite for building the psychological armor you need to maintain your integrity and clarity when you're facing down governments, assassination attempts, and immense geopolitical pressure. He built a resilient system because he himself is profoundly resilient.
The system is a reflection of the man.
Exactly. And for anyone interested in business, the most powerful lesson is that quality engineering and beautiful design can be a superior and definitely more ethical business model than surveillance.
He proved it's possible.
Telegram proved that by refusing to exploit user data, they were forced to be better. They had to innovate relentlessly. And that superior product, the speed, the security, the joy you feel from something as small as the Thanos snap effect, that can be a viable path to $500 million in revenue. It just smashes the idea that harvesting data is the only way to win.
And looking to the future, that discussion of the Universe 25 mouse paradise experiment, it raises this really critical, maybe even uncomfortable question for all of us.
Given where we're headed with AI and technology.
Right. We're on the cusp of this incredible abundance promised by generative tech. A world where struggle, necessity, and maybe even effort could be engineered away. So the question is If scarcity is biologically essential for human purpose and motivation, how will we find meaning in that world?
How do we avoid the fate of the mice?
How do we avoid that societal collapse? That's the existential problem that our generation of creators and leaders really has to solve. We're busy building this technological Garden of Eden, but we have to be very conscious that we don't become the paralyzed, beautiful mice trapped inside of it.